thank you very much for staying with us. We delve into the big stories this morning, starting with that situation to do with premix fuel and how some cartels allegedly, supposedly, are hoarding these and reselling them at exorbitant, cutthroat prices. But how did we get here? And what can we do about the situation? Well, joining us for the conversation, Nana Brokwa Asari. He is the Administrator, National Premix Secretariat. We also have Jojo Solomon, Acting President of the Ghana National Canoe Fishermen Council. Both of these gentlemen join the conversation. Nana, Jojo, a very good morning to you. In fact, I'll come into the studio first. Nana, a very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you as well.
Okay. We'll be joined by Jojo shortly as well, as and when we have him. Jojo, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Good to have you join the conversation. But I'll start with Nana in the studio. You've seen the latest documentary we've put out. What is your reflection on it?
Good morning to you and good morning to all your viewers once again. I must commend Joy FM, Joy TV for this wonderful expose. Government has been on this issue for the longest of time. Yes, we see the media as partners in trying to curtail this menace that we find in our system. So a very good job to Joy FM. These are things that the Secretariat is aware of. These are things that government is aware of. These are things that government is consciously working towards so we can solve the problem.
You say it's something you're aware of, it's something you're working toward. What exactly have you done about this? This is not the first time we're hearing about such an incident. In fact, throughout this period, the tenure of this administration, and even before, we've heard of such incidents. So when you say government is working on the situation, I'd like to know what exactly has been done.
All right, so we've come a long way with regards to the distribution and sale of premix fuel to fisher folks. In the past, we used to have lots and lots of issues. This administration has done very well to reduce some of these incidences that we are talking about. Not too long ago, you may recall that tanker union drivers were on strike. One of the reasons for the strike was this electronic seal that NPA has introduced. As I speak to you now, MMDCs have also been integrated with regards to the sale and distribution of premix fuel. We have platforms where we publish list of landing beaches receiving fuel, etc. But by way of education, I would like to state emphatically that premix fuel is highly subsidized by government. A gallon of premix fuel is now on about 10 cedis, 40 pesos. Ordinarily, that should be costing about 50 cedis. So the subsidy gap or the range induces people to indulge in such illegalities because there's so much profit that people can get out of this business. So whilst government is trying very hard to subsidize premix fuel for fishermen, others, including some of the fishermen themselves, are also trying to make money at the back of government. That is why I'm sure as our conversation progresses, we'll talk about what government is doing. Currently, we've done a lot of education. We are doing a lot of enforcement. But we believe the only way and the only solution to this problem is the use of technology. The Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has charged the ministry to see how we can fully automate these processes, which we are working at.
So you're telling me that the price differential between the actual cost of the product, 10 cedis, and what it should have been, 50 cedis, is about 40 cedis?
Yes.
Right. And you're also telling me that you know some fishermen themselves also try to take advantage of the situation. But that would be expected, right? So what has been done to, close this loophole?
All right. So if you look at the composition of the landing beach committees, government realizes that it's high time fishermen take control of what happens at the landing beach. So if you go to a landing beach, a 7-member landing beach, you have the chief fisherman as the chairman of the landing beach committee. If you read our LI 2233, section 22, it clearly spells out who and who should be, or the composition of the landing beach. So you have the chief fisherman, you have the chief rep of the chief monger, you have a rep of the canoe owner, you have a rep from the DC, etc. So we expect that this committee would be honest enough to sell fuel to fisher folks, because they control or manage the affairs of these landing beaches.
You expect them to be honest enough to do that. It's a human institution. When there are loopholes, these things happen.
So what we expect is for them to sell the fuel to their fellow fishermen. But unfortunately, we realize that on lots of occasions, you realize that most of these landing beach committee members connive with people who are not fishermen and then sell premix to them. Let me also state that premix has other uses other than putting it in your outboard motor, because any two-stroke engine is able to take the premix fuel. So you find chainsaw operators who should be buying fuel at the full cost, trying to buy premix fuel. You find people who are into agriculture, using it for irrigation.
There are different uses, like you find people, and all of them will feed into this. But again, that is to be expected. The chainsaw, I mean, in this latest documentary, we talk about saying, chainsaw operators trying to access it and all of that. But my question is, what measures? Because initially you spoke to me about the fact that you had reduced, the incidence of premix fuel being diverted, being hoarded, and being resold at exorbitant prices. So if I asked you, by how much exactly can you quantify and say you've reduced this? What would you say? All right. So to begin with, previous. Do you have any, before you even go, I don't want you to hang yourself. All right. Do you have any statistics on that? I may not be able to give you figures to that, but by far and large, like I said previously, we didn't even have tracking devices on these tankers. So you could have fuel loaded from Tor, and then it ends up somewhere in Ashaiman, etc. All of these things have become a thing of the past. But so how exactly have you done that? Because of the tracking device. Because of the tracking device. But currently, what happens is that after fuel is dislodged into the tanks, we don't have sensors and monitors in these tanks. So there are instances where after fuel is dislodged in the tanks, fishermen siphon the fuel again and then go and sell. It's very difficult to monitor because you don't have sensors in these tanks. That is why the subject now comes with automation, where we want to modernize these landing beach sites, where it's going to be like mini filling stations like we have it, where we can have sensors in the tanks and we can have a back-end monitoring system in our office to ensure we see the levels at each landing beach. Until that is done, because it's a human institution, people will definitely find loopholes. The law is very clear. If you look at Section 28, it talks about people who hoard premix fuel, their punitive measures. As I speak to you now, we have cases in court. People have been prosecuted. We've done a lot of education. How many have been prosecuted? That this year we have 3 cases that have been prosecuted. 3 cases of prosecution. If you look at the law, it talks about 2 years imprisonment, fines, and all of that. But if you ask me personally, I even think some of these sanctions are not even too severe. So people would always want to circumvent the law and do their own thing. So the education is going on, the enforcement is going on. We are collaborating with the law enforcement agencies, the police, the marine police, etc. But we want to make it difficult for the act itself to happen. If the act doesn't happen, then we don't even have to even worry ourselves and spend money to enforce the law. Because enforcing the law can be very, very expensive. We have over 300 landing beaches across the country. Like I said, the devices are not monitored. We don't have devices in there which can know the level. So at night, at dawn, if fishermen connive, they can easily go and siphon. So it's sometimes very difficult to monitor these things. That is why the ministry, led by Honorable Howard Kumsin, is pushing very hard to ensure that we can pull through with this automation. I can tell you on authority that plans are fully far advanced to make sure that this thing happens. So 2 quick things before I go to Jojo. Partly, or to a large extent, you are blaming the fishermen themselves. I just want you to clarify that. It's a collective. I wouldn't apportion the blame to only the fishermen. It could be the fishermen. That's why I said partly. So you are partly blaming the fishermen themselves for doing this. Yeah. They are part to be blamed. The fisher folk, you're blaming them. Exactly. Okay. The other bit is, in terms of the prosecutions, those you say, yes, have been prosecuted. Have there been any convictions? Yes, we've had convictions. How many of these 3 this year? This year, just 1. Last year, we had 3 people who were convicted. Yeah. Looking at the numbers and looking at the stories that have filtered in over the years and what it appears to be, this is like a cartel. It's like a mafia, system that is being run across the country. How do you feel about 3 prosecutions in a year with 1 conviction, or 3 the previous year? It doesn't appear to me, from where I sit, to be, it appears to be even less than a drop in a bucket. I think there are several punitive measures that the ministry employs in dealing with some of these situations. Even this year alone, we've had several cases where we have to suspend fuel to an entire district because premix fuel has been illegally sold. It's happening, I think this year we had
Ekumfi, the whole Ekumfi district was suspended. We had cases in Adan where we suspended a whole landing beach. So we are using different tactics in sanctioning these fishermen. And I must confess that some of these punitive measures are even more severe than the convictions, because the fishermen feel it themselves. What we want to do is to let the fishermen themselves volunteer and give us information. That also brings the subject of the use of premix fuel to perpetuate the illegal acts of light fishing. Light fishing is very illegal. You find fishermen who, instead of just buying premix fuel to power their outboard motors, they buy premix fuel and also put it in their generators to engage in some of these illegalities. We've had instances where a whole district will have to be penalized, and that is what we are doing. As I speak to you now, it was just last week that we lifted a ban on Ekumfi district. For 3 months, fuel didn't go to Ekumfi, because we realized that if you are using this fuel for an illegality, that should mean that you don't need fuel. It happened at Shama this year, like I said, in Fansiman district. So there are several tactics that we are employing to ensure that at least we clean up the system. But like I said, ultimately, we want to make sure some of these things don't happen, and that is why the subject of automation.
My final bit to you for now, it has to do with the political twist to this entire menace that we are fighting. We've had people on record say, look, I've served political party A, in this case the MPP, and this is their way. I mean, I've not been given any role. This is their way of compensating me. I'm sure you've seen the videos, among others. How are you addressing the political end to the conversation? Because then you move away from the fisher folk. These are people who aren't even fisher folk, yet they're getting access to it, they're hoarding it and reselling it for hundreds of cedis, some as much as 170 cedis and others. Now, if you compare that to even what you say to be the actual price of the product, let's say 50 cedis and the subsidy of 40 cedis, this is almost more than three times the actual cost. And some fisher folk across the country are being forced to buy at those prices. Central region, Volta region, at least per our latest documentary. How are you dealing with the political end to the
I think that's a very erroneous impression.
Erroneous in which sense?
Let me break it down. So the National Premix Fuel Committee adheres strictly to the LI 2233. I just told you how landing beaches are composed. If you read section 22, it says that the National Premix Fuel Committee, in consultation with the District Assembly, shall compose a landing beach committee. It states clearly that the chief fisherman of the community should be the chairperson. So there's no way anybody can go around and circumvent the law and bring a political figure to be the chief fisherman. Chief fishermen are appointed by the communities themselves, and you can go through all the communities.
How about beyond these groupings?
Exactly.
You say that technically, Nana, it gets to them.
Yeah.
And whatever distribution takes place from there.
Yeah.
But you do admit that even within these ranks, there are political elements. You cannot say that, these people are devoid of any political affiliations.
Yeah.
And that is where the trouble comes in, because these are people with political colors. And in the past, if you recall, it has also been said that even sometimes the distributions in terms of which person is the key person in these groupings, sometimes you look at who belongs to which political party. I don't want to get into that. But you cannot run away from the fact that there are political considerations, that there are people with political colorations, and that it could impact whatever distribution happens, whether to Assemblyman A or Assemblywoman B, or to whoever is a political party favorite. That's what I'm asking you.
All right, so that is why I was trying to explain to you that if you adhere strictly to what is in the LI,
the point is they are not adhering strictly to what is in the LI.
There's a high possibility to reduce these political elements. For example, it talks about a fish monger rep. Unfortunately, we live in a very polarized country where one may either belong to Party A or Party B. So in the event that somebody is appointed to serve on the committee as a fishmonger rep, that person may, of course, be a fishmonger rep, but because that person belongs to this party, they say, okay, it's politicized. But of course, if the chairman or the chief fishermen themselves will stand their grounds, there are instances where you find chief fishermen saying that, okay, a party chairman says I should come for 20 drums, I should come for 10 drums. We always tell them to stand to their grounds. If you are standing for what is right, you should be able to defend it fearlessly. And these are instances we call on them to report such incidences to the Secretariat so that we can deal with it. Because you are the chairperson or you are the chairman. So if there's any political interference, you have to stand your grounds and make sure the right thing is done.
if there's any political interference, maybe what you may not be seeing is if there's any political interference and the person himself or herself is benefiting, maybe they just might sustain that interference. But you hold on. Let me bring in Jojo, who is president of the Canoe Fishermen's Association. Jojo, thank you for staying patiently on the line. I want to find out from you, the picture as painted by Nana, is it reflective of what you know, or is there a different picture that you see? What is your reality, Jojo?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I've worked with Nana on the Premix Committee for 4 years, and everything he's saying there is right, but there's more to it than just being right. More to it, yes, we are all aware that this is what the airline says. This is what the Premix Committee and the Premix Secretariat, under the LI 2233 are supposed to do. This is our mandate. But the problem is that it is one thing having the terms of reference to work with, and another thing actually dealing with the situation on the ground. Whether we like it or not. For some years now, at least for almost 15 to 20 years now, Premix Fuel has been politicized, whether we like it or not. There is no landing beach committee that will allow the opposition party member to be on. The fishermen themselves will even not allow that this man is an MPP man, this man is an NDC man. So there's no right for him to be on the committee. When the NDC was in power, no MPP person, and then I'm putting this on record, no MPP person was allowed to serve on the landing beach committees.
So let me get that clearly, Jojo. You're saying that there is a serious political twist to this entire enterprise of Premix Fuel and who gets access to it, even at your level. And you are saying here on record that when the NDC was in power, no member of the MPP was on that committee. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
And currently, no NDC person is allowed to serve on the Premix Committee. It has been the status quo. We know the committee, the secretariat is confronted with it. Now we have a minister who has the political will to change the discourse. Sometimes I sit back and look at her frustration and you realize that, whatever she's trying to do, yes, but cannot be sustainable.
You're referring to the Minister for Fisheries, Mavis Hawakumsi.
Exactly.
Right.
Sometimes you personally go to the landing beach to make sure, to sell the Premix Fuel to the actual recipients, the fishermen themselves. She goes to Volta region, she does the same thing. Recently, when we reopened the sea, at Kumfi, she went there to do the same. You understand? I can see her frustration. But it is a system that is failing. We must operate within the confines of a system, the LI 2233. You understand? So for me, I believe that the only game changer is the automation. That is the only way out. Otherwise, like you rightly said, human elements, money, cartel, there's no way. We've been fighting this over the years and we're not getting any results. And in actual fact, the administration and then the sale of Premix itself is not done in the offices. I've attended meetings for 4 years. And I'm telling you on authority that you don't sit in the office, make laws and think that the laws work. The issues are on the ground. Look at what Joy FM has brought to bear on the Ghanaian populace. Therefore, it means that the Kanka itself is operational. It is on the ground. So you may sit in the office thinking that the LI 2233 is the tool that should work. But it is one thing, the tool that should work, another thing, whether it is working.
So tell me, Jojo, is that a point that Nana Brokwa and his team is missing? Because it appears, or they are missing, it appears he's spoken extensively about the LI 2233 and it stipulates this, it stipulates that. But basically what you're saying is that the point, the reality on the ground is not necessarily same. So is there that disconnect between what the law says, what Nana knows, and what is being implemented as a fact on the ground?
Yeah, if I listen to Nana clearly, he initially said that, yes, the Premix Secretariat, the Premix Committee, is aware of all these things that Joy FM has brought to bear. All these, you understand? So clearly, he knows that there's something going on. You understand? But
you say he knows that there's nothing going on. Basically, there's not much being done. Is that what he's suggesting?
He knows that these cartels are operating seriously on the ground.
Right.
It is for the chief fisherman to stand his grounds. It's another thing, like cartel. You can't expect that, I'm the chairman. Even because of the politicization, you realize that there's a chief fisherman who has different party colors. He's supposed to be the chairman. But because his party is not in power, he does not have what it takes he doesn't even have the moral right to even speak up. These are some of the frustrations. And it has been our frustration when I was on the board, a committee member, and Nana knows about it. That's why initially Nana said, yes, we are aware of all these things. And pragmatic measures are being taken. But for me, the only pragmatic measure is the automation, where people will not come in the name of party, in the name of protocol, in the name of your position in the community to access the premix and resell to the actual recipient. That is the problem. That is our frustration.
The political element you speak of, and you've painted a very clear picture, and as someone in the thick of things, it is even more stark, this reality that you paint. So when the NDC is in power, as far as this situation is concerned, there'll be no MPP members on that committee, and it's a political game. When the MPP is in power, no member of the NDC can be found there. Like you're saying, even when a chief fisherman is from the opposition party, he doesn't even have the right to speak. He doesn't have that temerity. So how much of a problem is the political element in this entire situation? How much of a problem is it, the role of politics?
All the problem. It is all the problem. You watch the Joy FM documentary very well. Yes, it is our party. Our party is in power. Even if you channel outboard motors to the assemblies, most of them end up in the hands of party people who are not fishermen. This is the discourse. This is the discourse. So for me, I believe that the only game changer, and I re-emphasize, is the digitalization of the product, where if you do not have the card to access the fuel, that's it. That's it. I'm even praying that the cartel will not find another way around to circumvent even this automation.
Well, I mean, wherever across the world, criminals always look for loopholes. Once you have loopholes, they will feed into them. But that brings me then to my next question, because Nana also laid a good portion of the blame at your doorstep as fisherfolk. Okay, so tell me, how much of a contribution do you feel your own membership, the canoe fishermen, among others, the Fishermen's Councils, also contribute to this problem? Is it fair to lay quite a portion of the blame at your doorstep?
Certainly, it is fair. It is fair because we are involved in, well, we are supposed, quote unquote, to be involved in the distribution and sale of the premix fuel. And definitely, like I said, all those who are involved are supposed to be politically connected, whether we like it or not. So it still comes back to where the problem is coming from.
When you say, just expatiate, explain a bit for me. When you say politically connected, how much connection do you need? What must you do to be this politically connected to feed into the system?
Like I said initially, that even the fishermen themselves will not allow anybody from the opposition party to be on the landing beach committee.
That precisely is my concern. So what must you be? Must you be a card-bearing member of the party? Must you hold some position in the party? What is it?
It is a small community, and everybody knows everybody. And therefore, if anybody who comes out of the opposition party will quickly be stampeded by the community or the party people within the community that you are not part of us, so you cannot be on the board. It's as simple as that. But we sit in the office. Nana Brocker sits in his office. And then, he sensitizes and then educates the landing beach committees that this is the LI 2233. This is the way it should go. This is how we should do it. You understand? And the minister, at every point, when she has the opportunity, re-emphasizes this point. But it's one thing re-emphasizing the point. Another thing, whether the points are being taken, and they will tell you clearly that the party gives birth to even the president. And therefore, the party is more powerful then. So until we depoliticize this industry, you understand? And the minister is doing everything possible. In a percent, I sit back and then I pity her. You see that clearly she's so frustrated. You understand? And she would sanction the whole community, the whole district. Don't give them premix fuel because this is what they are doing. They are diverting. They are doing this. You understand? But they are all not sustainable because then you get the MCs within the district to come in. You get the chiefs within this, and then she will have to give up. So for me, I believe that if the automation or the automation is the ultimate, let us go for it as quickly as possible. For me, that is where, but I had the opportunity to be in the Jubilee House during President Mahama's time, and I told him, and put this on record, I told him that there's a cartel operating within the premix sector, and therefore Western region and Central region are key. He should investigate. Nothing was done about it. Now we are here, so it has become the status quo, whether we like it or not. LI 2233 is sitting down in the comfort of the office, and then LI 22310 is also operating for the cartels, whether we like it or not. This is what is happening. This is what is pertaining on the ground. Otherwise, Joy FM would not have captured all these things. And they are live on video. So what are we saying? It's going on, it's happening. And it is our frustration as well.
So some of these fisher folk, let me come to you, Nana, explain in the last few months, sometime back in April, they were explaining that, like you said, premix from government costs them anything between 7 and 10 cedis. What should have gone for about 50 cedis per gallon. Then they have to add the cost of engine oil, which is about 100 cedis. And that means that if you required 140 of these gallons for a trip, what it would mean was that you would be expending about 7,000 cedis. That was in April. The dynamics have changed as of this time. But the cost of fishing now, the fishermen say, is drowning them. Because, look, if they have to come up with these sums of money just for a trip, they go and the little that they catch, they come and sell at inflated prices because no one does business to incur losses. They are barely breaking even. It's affecting the industry, and we already know all the different shades of problems that we have when it comes to fishing in this country. People using pair trawlers, foreigners getting into our waters and fishing, because the fact is that we are also not able to man our territorial waters in the best ways possible, not in the ways that other countries with better naval services and equipment would be able to do. We don't have that. So already we are bleeding from that angle. And from our fisher folk, with the little that is available to us, they are also now selling at cutthroat prices. When was the last time you went out there, and I don't know whether you ever eat outside? Do you buy fish like with rice and wache and stuff? Do you buy that?
I do.
Have you seen any changes in prices?
In the price of fish?
Right.
Of course, there are several factors that drive prices on the market, fuel prices, etc. So definitely, global problems will definitely have an effect on prices.
Global problems like what?
What is happening globally? Of course, the suits you bought, maybe if you bought the suits last year, probably it may not be the same price. So the same factor is affecting the price of transportation. I believe. Last year, you were buying fuel for a certain price. Now it's gone up. So these are problems that may affect.
While we can talk about the global situation, we must also look at the specific situation of premix fuel, which we're discussing. And I can tell you for a fact that whether it's cassava fish or even some very mobrowa fish that I used to buy some time ago for maybe 4 or 5 cedis. The other day I was in shock. I went to my usual gobe joint. It's pretty close to
Okay.
where we are. It's just around the corner. And bought a little beans, a little rice. I like the mix. The fish they gave me, the gentleman put it in, and I thought that was the regular 4 cedi fish.
All right.
He told me it was 10 cedis. I was in shock. And some of the people around shared in my lamentation while even laughing at me because it appeared I wasn't on top of the prices, so to speak.
Yeah.
That is the reality. How are you dealing with that end of the conversation?
Right.
How do we deal with it? Because obviously the prices of
things have gone high.
It's terrible.
I can understand, and I can also share with your sentiment. Of course, but you should also have or take cognizance of the fact that you would have been even buying it much more, if not for some of the interventions government is putting in place.
Like
for example, the subsidy. We talk about subsidizing outbound motors, etc. So definitely things are becoming expensive, I understand, but it would have been much more expensive if some of these interventions were not in place. So let's hope for the best. If you look at the global trend of fishing now, scientists are forecasting that our fishery stocks in the ocean are declining. You quite recall that we just came out of close season. So there are several factors driving the price of fish on the world market. We talk about these IUUs, people using light fishing, people using DDT to fish, etc. So I think difficult situations also demand more stringent measures. Not too long ago, the EU nearly sanctioned Ghana with a yellow card because of some of these illegal practices. That is why the minister herself is making sure that she puts her foot down. It was very difficult to take the decision to go on a close season, particularly this year, because fishermen were complaining of situation or circumstances happening. But the ministry had to stamp its feet down, and we all saw the benefits of the close season.
It's important that we have this discussion because some 2 million people are involved in the fishing business in Ghana. If I do some quick mathematics, that would be somewhere around 7.58% of the population. This means this is not an industry we can joke with. Yeah. And when you look at our staples, our diets across the country, we consume a lot of fish. Yeah. So tell me, with all these cliques in quote, dotted across the country, having access on a political level, because like Jojo Solomon has painted, it's largely political. If you are not even in the ruling administration, if you do not belong, you will not have access. I think that point has been made very clearly. So how are you dealing with this clique system? Because you can tell me all the bit about, the chairperson of this and the member of that and the canoe fishermen. But it appears even for all of those roles, you must be politically connected to be on that board. How possibly are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, so like I rightly said, it's a collective effort. The Secretariat has its role to play. The law enforcement agencies have their role to play. The media, like you're doing, also have your role to play. The fishermen themselves, I'm happy Jojo alluded to the fact that the fishermen themselves are even partly to be blamed. Just last week, he's on the line and you can ask him. He even led the arrest of some of their subgroup members trying to divert fuel from one place to the other. He himself is on the line and you can ask him and he'll confirm the story. A fisherman, well known, who is an executive, was indulging in this illegality. So a lot of times...
And that's the point I'm making.
A lot of times you are quick to blame government, you are quick to blame our leaders, but it's a collective responsibility. That is why the ministry is also doing its part. Like he said, the game changer will be the automation. We are far advanced, the contract has been awarded. Come by end of August, we are having the first 50, which is going to be installed. So I'm happy he's admitted that the game changer, or what can change the fronts of this cartel and this menace and this clique, will be the automation, where people will have unique cards. It's only the canoe owners who have cards, so that we can wipe out all of these middlemen and people who buy and sell at exorbitant prices, so that we can even put a capping system. You know, nowhere in the world have I seen a subsidized product in perpetuity. Today, anybody goes to the landing beach, and if you have money, you buy as much as you can, you put it in your room, you cut yourself, and then you sell it at exorbitant prices. It's sad, but we are working towards it. And I'm happy, like you said, the game changer is the automation, and I'm happy the ministry is far advanced with regards to this project. By August, we'll have the first 50, and going forward, I think we can close some of these loopholes that we have in the system.
Right, so automation has been on the board for a while. I remember in June, the sector minister, Mavis Hawakumsin, was speaking about how she could even sit in her office and track, premix fuel, and the fact that even if the person who was conveying this siphoned a bit, she would know. But obviously, that system has become, in some sense, redundant because we need further automation to be done to make it more relevant. Because if you track it to a point, and then, like you said, it's dislodged into another vessel, and then the siphoning happens, it's cost 90, zero.
Yeah.
So what would you say, gentlemen, as we get ready to wind down on the conversation? Maybe instead of coming to you, I'll go to Jojo first so we can wind down on the conversation. We've had quite a discussion. It is clear, Jojo, that there is the political twist to the conversation, which is crucial. Then there is the issue to do with you, the fisher folk yourselves, and the role you play in this entire dynamic. And of course, then there are the other broader issues that are simmering underneath. So for you, Jojo, what is the way forward? How do we, apart from automation, which I do not know, maybe, Nana, do you know how quickly we'll get the automation?
Oh, like I said rightly, by the end of August, we are having the first 50. The contract has been awarded. It's gone through all the process, done procurement, PPE, everything. So I think by end of August, like I said, we're getting the first 50.
Just interested, was it a competitive bidding?
It was. As the mother ministry, we are an agency under the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development. So the mother ministry took the lead role.
So you mean the Ministry for Fisheries and Aquaculture?
The Ministry for Fisheries and Aquaculture. But I know my minister and her team will definitely make sure they exhaust the right procedure to make sure things are done correctly.
So it wasn't so sourced?
I can't speak to the facts now, but I know definitely that the right thing was done.
The right thing was done?
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't know the details, but you know the right thing was done?
Exactly, yes.
How can you know the right thing was done when you don't have the details?
Oh, like I said, this automation process has been lingering for the longest of time. In fact, we've been at it, Jojo would attest to the fact that we even started when he was on board. It's been there for like 3 years. And the stall in making sure this thing comes on board was because we wanted to make sure we exhaust every line item to make sure that at least it goes through the right procedures. So at the end of the day, we have value for money as well.
So over to you, Jojo. What's the way forward? You've mentioned automation. Yes, we've heard that. But what is the way forward? What would you like to see when the automation starts? And beyond that, in dealing with the political issues, how do we go about it?
Thank you so much. Before I even speak to this question, I would also want you to know that from where the information reaching us, the devices planted on the fuel tankers so that they can be tracked to the final destination are not even foolproof. Sometimes the tanker will end up in, let's say, Osu, but meanwhile the device will indicate that the tanker is in Axim. Because it is just a device, and so somebody carries it in his pocket, goes to Axim, MPA will track it, that it's gotten to Axim, but meanwhile the fuel is at Osu.
Are you suggesting that there's also a mechanism, of where people can take off the tracking devices from the tankers or delivery vessels, if you like, and then play games with the system?
Exactly. You understand? So like I said, the only way out is the automation. And I am only trusting that this cartel will put everything to rest and will not also go and look for other ways round about it.
Jojo, if they are making money out of the situation, they definitely will look for other ways.
Well, then maybe we will address it as and when. But for me, I believe that right now, after so, like Nana Abraka rightly said, for over 3 years, we've been deliberating and brainstorming on how to, curb this menace. It's a cartel. It's not easy. It is a cartel. It is not easy. You understand? And we're all so frustrated. The fishermen are always crying. You understand? But one thing that some of these political parties fail to acknowledge is that we are not even 2 million, 3 million, 10% of the population. And they are all of voting age. And therefore, if it comes to votes, if it is votes that they are concerned about, then they should handle this industry, this sector, with all the respect and decorum that we need. Because fishermen can decide that today you are down and out. Today you are here and you will be here forever. You understand? So please, let us treat this industry with the kind of respect and decorum that we will require. And I believe that everything will be fine.
All right. Jojo, thank you for that final submission. Let me come to Nana Brokwa in the studio. How do you react? So he's just painted another picture where people even are able to detach the tracking device from whatever vessel is delivering the premix fuel. And so you may think, like how Akumsin has been saying, you are sitting in your office and thinking it's an Axim, it's actually in Osu, and there's siphoning going on. Are you aware of that as well?
Like he rightly said, people are always trying to think of ways to also, let me use the word again, circumvent the system. As I speak to you now, we are collaborating with MPA. Not too long ago, and I'm quoting from your website, last week, we all know that tanker drivers were on strike, and one of the reasons for the strike was some of these new introductions that we've brought. And it says that with the introduction of seals and tracking devices on the petroleum, the tanker drivers said they are suffering from some unfair treatment by the authorities. These unfair treatments come in the form of wrong accusations of tampering with seals and punishing of a whole group of drivers alleged. This is just last week from your website, So these are
that has to do with the LPG situation.
And the premix as well, not the LPG alone. In fact, this is more with the premix.
Right.
Yes, so these are new introductions, these are new reforms. Reforms, you don't achieve results overnight. It takes time for people to get used to it.
How long has this been in force?
It's been like over close to 2 years now. And it's really...
So after 2 years, we're
still having challenges. So this measure, for example, is clamping down on a lot of these irregularities that are happening. But like I said rightly, it doesn't end there. When the fuel is dislodged into the tanks, there are other circumstances that can happen to it. So this is just one measure. But I believe to be able to solve the problem holistically, we must tie all the loose ends. That is why I mentioned that everybody has a role to play. Even the fishermen themselves have a role to play. Let's assume that we are done with this automation and we give cards to these fishermen, and you have your card and you buy your premix. Some fishermen may even decide that after having their cards and fully automated and everything, they may still want to go and sell the premix fuel to someone and decide not to go for fishing. That instance, that scenario is also there. So we all have to tie and make sure we play a role to be able to solve this problem. The problem doesn't lie on the doorstep of only the ministry. It doesn't lie on the doorstep of only the president. It lies amongst all of us. Like I said rightly, just last week, Jojo himself, he's online, you can ask him. He led us to arrest some members who are executives, who are fishermen, well-known, who are trying to divert premix fuel. So we all have a role to play. We must play that role very well in order to make sure the fisheries sector thrives.
Well, this is where we'll have to hang this conversation. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining. Jojo Solomon, Acting President, Ghana National Canoe Fishermen Council. We also had Nana Brokwa in the studio joining us from the technical point, that is Administrator of the National Premix Secretariat. I can only wish you the very best as we try to tackle this menace.
Thank you very much.
Okay, doke. So this is the first leg of our big stories. But right before we get into the second one, right before we take a break, how's it? That's hello. How about treating your family to a summer holiday in South Africa? Come journey to South Africa for a good time in our beautiful country. Get to know the locals and our languages. If you're looking to let your hair down, relax, or you're just in the mood for some fun, family-friendly adventures, South Africa has got everything you need. This summer, Wazanila. Come this side and experience a holiday worth talking about. On that note, we take a break. When we return, we'll be talking about Standard & Poor's, the recent downgrade of our economic outlook from B- to CCC plus with a negative outlook, what that really means, and how government is trying hard to counter that. Stay.